Commission to order, January 7, 2001. First order of business is approval of the minutes of December 2, 2020.
I'll move approval of the minutes. Oh, this is loud. With one addition on, well, this under number one, call to order. Others in attendance, Elder Julia Aretafreda was at our meeting also.
Is that it? Or?
Yeah, that's all for me.
Okay. Did we get a second on that?
Not yet.
No, yet.
I'll second.
Okay, as I see, I hear a second. Any other questions or corrections? Hearing none. Voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, public appearances, and I see you there. So just for the record, just say your name and your address.
Of course, Janelle Rice, 2755 Jasmine Drive.
Okay. And you're here for the park and, or was
Yep,
it
just-
Scott? Help me out.
Well, I think
Prairie?
Janelle, the Stoner Prairie Park planning process, right? Janelle appeared before the Park Commission a couple months ago inquiring about the development of the Stoner Park.
Okay.
And actually, the Park Commission did approve the forming of a subcommittee to get going on the planning process. And I guess included in my director's report was a statement to update that process, but as Janelle is here, I could certainly provide that update at this time if that's okay with everybody.
Okay.
So I think I'll do that. And what we're continuing to work on with the help of Park Commission members, David Garter and Sue Easterday, is we're trying to prepare for our first meeting. And really, what we're working on is to make this plan a comprehensive plan. You know, it really entails a lot of different properties. It also entails a lot of different neighborhoods. And really, we're envisioning this as actually it may function as a community park, and that there's going to be a lot of different activities and things going on within this park. I will report that I did speak with the planning department, the director of planning today, and she did indicate that the planning department would be able to help us in this effort. She indicated that they can help conceptualization of the planning process, which again is going to be part of that first meeting. What is going to be the timeline and those kinds of things. And then they can help us with the base mapping information, which is really going to be beneficial to the group. And like I say, we're formulating that task force, if you would, getting ready for the first meeting. And I did take a chance to take a look at our park and open space plan, which does call for some action items framework when we begin to start to do this park planning. And I think I'm just going to read this verbatim because I hopefully that'll kind of set the theme for it. Recreation on public spaces can take many different forms. Conventional forms include basketball, volleyball courts, baseball, softball diamonds, play equipment, natural activities such as walking and hiking. These conventional forms will always have a place in public spaces. This section of the plan looks beyond these conventional forms and looks at recreation on public spaces through the following framework. There's actually 3 S's. The first S is sociable. Think people. What attracts people most? It would appear other people is kind of the theme there. Solitude. Think nature. Solitude can include people. It's more about surrounding environments and uses. So the idea of conservation, the idea of natural education, those kinds of things. And then also seams. Think of transportation corridors and linkages. Trails from home to work places, trails from home to errand places, and trails from home to play places. And this You know, and I think that's the idea, is to kind of take a look at this project regionally. Certainly, it might be central to the neighborhood, but to take a comprehensive look at the area. And one other thing I might note that Sue brought to my attention is if you can recall, the Moraine Edge Park. That actually runs east to west on the southern boundary of the community, but it heads to the north, and then it would connect up into this area. So that's another potential connection, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you know, I know there is some immediacy to the project. We've got a lot of new neighbors and things in the area, but we're also wanting to make sure that we take a good share of time to make sure that we're planning it and doing those kinds of things. So I guess that, you know, and I don't know if you would have something to add, Dave or Sue.
It's a good summary. Again, I think there's an opportunity to have a plan that, it's not working.
Press your button there. There you go.
Okay. I think there's an opportunity to have a plan that's forward-thinking. What might this area be 20 years from now? There's the immediate thing. Somebody wants to play there the next time that people can be out and socializing. And frankly, you know, it has existed, some of it. Apparently, there's a Ultimate Frisbee area, a group that's utilized the playground, certainly the playgrounds of the school. But I would hope that we would be able to engage some stakeholders, i.e. the Verona School District, and some commercial land uses such as Sub-Zero or the Hop House. And maybe there's a way that they can be a part of what would be a larger community park. Certainly the Black Hawk Church has a wonderful facility, wonderful parking lot, perhaps that's vacant at times when it could be used for other things. And so maybe we need to dream a little bit and think a little bit about how we can put together these components so it works overall in terms of the community and not just isolated little pieces. So that's about it.
Janelle, did you have other questions or things that you would like to let us know about?
Thank you. There are a couple of things, as folks have been talking, I'd like to add kind of maybe a little bit fragmented. So just a quick reminder that this is the parcel that sits over by our two schools. We've got approximately 10 acres that is kind of a little piece here and a little piece there, but we're looking at potentially remapping those because they are contiguous spaces. And so that'll give us a nice foundation to be able to work with. As we kind of take a look at that area, we've got some exceptional bike trails that are blocks away from this park area. We've potentially got Edgewood considering building their athletic field last I knew, and they're planning on using a significant portion of that parcel for natural habitats. Then we also have, of course, the solar field that's going to be pretty substantial, and a significant portion of that they were intending on putting in some natural elements to support everything that wasn't directly solar in that area. So those are the bones of it, but then when I kind of start taking a look at potentially the people that we have that could be part of this, you know, Katie is a civil engineer, David's an architect. We've got these expertises that then come in to say, how do we use this space? How do we plan it? How do we have not only something that's not only lovely, but it's functional in the use of the land, but then the different cross-sections of people that use bikes, people that run, parks and rec, people with little kids, and ultimately different ways that we find use out of that land. So then another layer on this is some kind of almost lucky elements. So we are in the process, I believe, of putting a well in there, which lets us then put in a shelter for a portion of what it would have normally cost. And so you take a look at that need that we had for other reasons and say, how do we build on that? And so we can actually have a shelter that has bathrooms. And you start connecting those dots together. And in my opinion, we have the opportunity to do something incredibly special by pulling in all of that talent and all of these pieces and connecting these dots together to do something lovely with it. I'm personally excited to see the different people from each of the neighborhoods get involved, because I think there's a buy-in. But my ask as I reached out to Lacey Heights and Seminole Forest was to say, not only am I going to ask for buy-in, but it would be lovely if we had somebody that loved to bike. So then they could come in and they could talk about the things that they would like to see in that park, maybe a couple of things that would make it very usable for them. Somebody else can come in and talk about the needs of people that have little tots, right? So maybe we need a changing table and a sandbox, and so that everybody kind of gets some of what they want in this park that makes it very, very usable to them. And that really kind of then feeds right back into that gathering and that community space. So I think when we take a look at putting together a plan in those different points of views and have that be comprehensive at all of those levels, that's where I really, I'm just, obviously I'm pretty excited about what I think we can do with this particular park. That's all I had, was just to kind of come back and revisit and see where we're at and answer any questions and get any updates that you might have for me.
Okay, thank you then. Any questions for the speaker? Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, Janelle, you might be familiar with this. The Edgewood College Recreation, is that still a possibility?
I don't know. That was definitely something that was on the table when Sarah and I were on council. Sarah, have you heard anything on that?
I have not heard anything further. And I guess I would say, I think this is all great information, but this wasn't on the agenda, so I don't know if we should go into too much details. I think if we want to discuss this further and start asking questions, this be an agenda item for the future? And just as of right now, can people reach out to you if they want to get involved or want to learn more? Or I guess, Mark, is there a recommendation you'd make? I know we have several people on the agenda, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, I guess, with the.
Well, I guess I might, it was included in my Parks Department, my Parks reports, that I was going to provide an update, so I guess that's how I feel that we can kind of discuss it, but certainly we, can't make decisions or those kinds of things. So I think that the discussion that we've had so far kind of provides an update that I was going to provide as part of my director's report. So in the interest of time and respect for Janelle's time, she was interested in it, so she decided to come in first, and then everyone was okay with me kind of giving an update at this point. So I think we're all good. We'll just continue to work on it.
Okay. You haven't reached out to the neighborhood yet, though, correct?
So I reached out to Lacey Heights and Seminole Forest, and then I provided the names back to Scott for, I think our objective was to provide 2 names per neighborhood so that we could get fair representation and balance. Seminole was like super excited, and so they brought forward 3, and I asked them to consider one of those to be a standby then, and those names have been submitted to Scott for representation for those 2 neighborhoods.
And we're really in the process of gathering the stakeholders from each of the different, Black Hawk Church, the school district, Chamber of Commerce, just kind of reaching out to find the stakeholders that we can pull together when we have that first meeting.
Okay. Any other questions for him? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, seeing no other appearances, we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to review and approval of agenda. Motion and a second.
I'll motion to approve the agenda as given. It looks like we probably have people for both A and B, so it might as well be in the same order.
Okay, is there a second? Do I hear?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. Patrick, we had money on you to
For doing what?
see if you'd notice that. The missing C in our agenda.
Oh, no, I didn't. You won.
Okay, well, anyway, it is correct as it's written, and we'll just follow it as is. So,
So there is no C?
no, there is no C.
Okay, all right.
I suppose we could renumber them. Doesn't matter to me. Just leave it the way it is, I think, yeah. See, 5A is Eagle Scout Project, Lydia McIntyre, and
And actually, I think Lydia is joining us via Zoom. She's down in the left-hand corner there. So Lydia is looking to
thank you for coming, by the way.
to do an Eagle Scout project in Dowley Park. And one of the steps of the process is to make a public presentation. So she's before the Park Commission tonight to make that presentation. So go for it, Lydia.
Hi, I am Lydia McIntyre, a Life Scout in Scouts BSA Troop 40 out of Middleton. Do you have slides for the presentation to put up?
Yep, they can scroll through them, Lydia.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you real well.
Okay.
Don't be nervous.
Next slide is Scouts BSA First Light Girls register into troops in early February of 2018, and Troop 40 was chartered later that month. In nearly 3 years, Troop 40 has grown to over 20 scouts from many different locations. 5 of the currently registered scouts with Troop 40 are working towards Eagle, including myself. The 7 ranks in Scouts BSA are Scout, Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, Star, Life, and Eagle. One of the requirements to attain Eagle rank is to do a project to benefit the community and demonstrate leadership skills. Next slide. My proposed Eagle project is a barn swallow house for the city of Fitchburg. The barn swallow's house is needed because barn swallows have been added to the threatened species list. Barn swallows are nesting in Fitchburg Park's pavilions, and that is unsafe for both the swallows and people using the pavilion. Moving the barn swallows into the house will make it safer for the birds to nest. Next slide. Here are some pictures of what the birdhouse will look like once it is complete. These are images of the existing barn swallow house that is located at Burn Park. Next slide. While constructing the house, I will be working off of the designs and plans from the existing barn swallow house. Next slide. Some recommendations for installation of the new house have been made, and they are Quarry Hill Park and Dolly Conservancy. Next slide. I will be leading a group of scouts over several scheduled workdays through the following project steps: acquiring materials, then cutting them per requirements for the house, then building the house and delivering it. Installation is not in the scope of the project because of time constraints of my Eagle Scout deadline. However, I would be happy to assist with installation even after I become Eagle Scout. Next slide. I would like to start on the project as quickly as possible to allow time to complete the project for my Eagle rank deadline. Next slide. Any questions?
And maybe I might be able to provide some additional information. Lydia spoke to me, and the Parks Department is certainly able and willing to assist with the installation of the barn swallow house itself. So we can certainly take care of that for Lydia and this project.
Is there any questions of Lydia?
I have a few. I'm Sue Easterday Lydia. Worked with the getting the first barn swallow structure configured. I didn't do any of the power tool stuff, but one of the things, one of your slides has the drawings with the schematics, and that, I'm going to get some more information to you. My contact with the Scouts was Tom Gilbert, and I sent a lot of documents to him. And so that image actually is of one that was designed and used in Waukesha County. And the one in the Fitchburg Park was actually modified a bit. And it's very close too, but the materials list will be a little different, and it's a little bit wider. So I'll get all of that to you. I think I already do have your email address from something that Tom Gilbert sent me. And the group that actually did the construction at Burn Park, one of the fellows of the three does computer-assisted design, and he sent something to me that I wanted to finish up before I sent to you, because I found even some discrepancies. It didn't have modifications we made right in the middle of the process. So in about a week or less, I'll get everything that we could possibly see would be helpful to the structure. I'll get it all finished up into you. Okay?
Any other questions or comments?
Not a question, but a comment.
Patrick.
Just, so, yeah, thanks, Mark. Just congratulations. I definitely know the Eagle Scout is a lot of time and a huge accomplishment, and I think sounds like a great project. I think that the swallows definitely, as Sue has said before, are a great addition for the environment, for mosquito care, and just congratulations. I think this is awesome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Maybe a question for Sue. Whichever, well, I guess there's two versions there, the one that was built in Burn Park and then this one here in our packet. Is there a rough estimate of the cost of the materials for building one of these?
Yeah, I was just working on that before coming here, and I had a price list of what the builders submitted to Scott back last March. And I whittled out everything we ended up not really using, and it came out to $675 for everything.
Okay. I think this is fine, whichever version they use, either this plan here or following the model in Burn Park. I would like to see more of these barn swallow houses in many places. If they, eat mosquitoes, let's put up a lot of them, but at some $600 each or so. I think that I've seen them in person. I went to Burn Park and looked at that one, and there's the pictures in here too. It looks like a very, very well-built, very high-class barn swallow house. I'm thinking of kind of on the barn swallow version of affordable housing. Maybe this could be, simplified so that it costs less and it's easier to build, and therefore build more of them.
Yeah, well,
for the
actually-
future.
Yeah, the plans that were from Waukesha County, they actually put a cedar shake roof on it, which we stripped off the plan because of the expense and the weight of it. And so there were actually a number of things that were done, but the builders were wanting to stick with the materials they did for longevity, for the amount of time and work to put 6 by 6 by 14-foot posts in the ground and then have the thing rot away in 5 years. That's not such a good idea either. So they were choosing materials for longevity as well. So that actually increases the cost compared to not.
And I might, I'm sorry.
I can see, there's a lot of house up there on those posts in Burn Park. So yeah, a 6 by 6 post to hold all that up seems good. But if it's simplified, reduced, less weight, then could go to less size posts, things like that to make it more affordable, build more.
And I might provide, to your other comment in regards to building more within the park system, Tom Gilbert is the contact that I used, or that we were able to connect with Lydia, and he typically has a lot of Eagle Scout projects and people that are looking for projects. So we actually took a little bit of a tour around the park system and provided them different opportunities and options for future Eagle Scout projects. So hopefully we'll get a mainstream of these kinds of projects within the park system.
Yeah, and it could be just as well that some troop, if there's a simplified design and they start cutting boards, cut 2 of everything and build 2.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
David?
David Gorder, Lydia, I think it's a great project, and I really commend you for wanting to do this. I would hope that there would be some way that we could recognize both yours and others' involvement, and so I'm not sure what that is, but I think it's good, at least I'm curious when I see something, how did this come about? Maybe there's a way we can do stuff. Obviously, digitally, you could have a page that would deal with barn swallows and the locations in the various parks, and that might be something that could live on in a simple way. So that would be my only comment. But congratulations, sounds like really a nice project.
Okay. Any others? Okay. Matt,
So I think if we could have a motion and accept the donation of the Eagle Scout project, that'd be great.
okay, we'll do that.
I will make a motion to accept the project as proposed by Lydia McIntyre for the Eagle Project of the Barn Swallow Shelter for, where's this going again?
Is there a second?
I second.
All right.
Oops.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Congratulations, Lydia. Keep in touch, okay?
Yeah, drop us a line when you get your Eagle Scout award. My son was in scouting all the way up until he joined the military, and I was in scouting myself. So I know what it takes to get the Eagle Award. It's not easy. And I don't know, when I was mayor, I like to recognize kids that achieve in the community, and I think it's worthwhile. So drop a line to Scott whenever you get it done, and go from there. So congratulations. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, moving on to our next item, 5B, Just Bikes Coalition Repair Station in King James Way. Steve Arnold, I'll give you the floor first if you want it.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone, and thanks for having me. This is a similar project. I'm proposing to provide to Fitchburg and Fitchburg Parks a donation. This comes from the Just Bikes Coalition. Just Bikes Coalition is a number of groups. If you look at the first page of the material that was provided in your packet, at the bottom is a list of the groups. I am the board secretary for the statewide Bike Fed and the treasurer of Bike Fitchburg, and both of those groups are part of the Just Bikes Coalition. The Just Bikes Coalition is not a formal organization, but we received a grant from the Madison Community Foundation called Mad About Bikes. And the statewide Bike Fed is the financial agent for the grant. And the purpose of the grant, well, first of all, the purpose of Just Bikes is to improve bicycling with an eye on equity, delivering bicycle facilities and programming and other things to encourage bikes to neighborhoods that may be underserved. And the Mad About Bikes grant was intended to provide ways for folks who are dependent on bikes for transportation to keep their bikes working. And it included a couple of components. One of them is paid internships and teaching some young fellows to do bike mechanics, to be bike mechanics. There was a mobile repair station based on a cargo bike that was sent to community events to help get bikes that might be disabled back and working again for their owners. And there were public repair stations purchased to be installed at community centers and other partners where the facility, the managers of the organization were committed to maintaining them and providing some programming to help folks use the repair stations to keep their bikes in good working order. In October 30th, we installed the last 3 stations that we installed at the Beacon, the homeless day shelter downtown Madison. And if I may share my screen, I see that the packet does not really include very many pictures. So I'd like to show you those. Can you see that picture?
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. So this is the deluxe Ceres Ceres is a Fitchburg company, even though they say they're in Madison, they're in Fitchburg on the Verona Road. The packet illustrates the standard public repair station. This is the deluxe model that we have. The tools are on cables with gravity weights that pull them up under the cowling when they're not in use. And this is at Cherokee Middle School. There you can see the school, and my friend Jake from the Bike Fed and John Ryder from the city of Madison. So this was one of our projects on that fall. Another one was at Luna's Groceries, serving the Luna's Groceries is at the north end of the Allied neighborhood. This is the closest one to Fitchburg. This one actually shows the wheel chalk, which we will be installing. And you can see, maybe not so well, we'll get to that. And this is at the Beacon Homeless Day Service Center in downtown Madison. You can see on this one, it has the, all of them have pumps, only the Luna's one has the wheel chalk to hold the bike steady while you're pumping up tires. And you can see the arms that come forward are where you hang your bike so you can work on the wheels and the drivetrain. So I will stop sharing. And so our proposal, there was enough money in the grant to buy 4, not 3, of these repair stations. And so we still have one in storage over off Sub-Zero Parkway in the warehouse of race day events. And we were looking for a place to install it. And we thought, of course, or I thought, being a Fitchburg resident, of the 3 neighborhoods targeted by our Healthy Neighborhoods initiative. That's Leopold, Belmar Hills, and Jamestown neighborhood. And like the Just Bikes, Mad About Bikes program, that program focuses on equity and providing services in neighborhoods that are underserved. And in the same way, the Park Commission and the city of Fitchburg created the King James Way Pocket Park a few years back. And that's where we're proposing to put it. And I've talked to Bike Fitchburg, and the Bike Fitchburg board has unanimously supported this proposal. I then took it to Scott. Scott and I discussed it, and he thought that you would be receptive. And we scheduled my visit today. And then for our December meeting, the Just Bikes Coalition voted unanimously to install this repair station in the King James Way Park, if you would accept it. Since that time, I've also gotten 1 bicycle parking stand that can store 2 bikes, also a Ceres product, black, it matches the repair station. And we will be we will install that as well. In discussions with Scott and as outlined on the application to Just Bikes Coalition for this repair stand, which I filled out on behalf of the city, the city would pour the concrete pad that you may have noticed the Cherokee School provided for us. That one's too small, so we'll get it to be the right size. And so parks maintenance workers would do that in the spring, and then we would install the bike rack and the repair station. And subsequently, Bike Fitchburg and Fitchburg Recreation, if this proposal were accepted, would have some repair events, how to fix a flat, maybe a bicycle rodeo in a business parking lot nearby or at the church there on Anton Drive and so on. So these are the kinds of ideas we have to keep the bikes that are in the neighborhood running. They complement Wheels for Winners and Free Bikes for Kids and Free Cycle programs to give away bikes through community centers and other social organizations to folks that need them and can use them and can't afford them. So I think that that covers the points that I wanted to make, and it's my hope that Park Commission will give its approval and we can move ahead with this project.
Okay. Scott, did you have anything to add or?
Well, and certainly I wanted to publicly thank Steve and the organization for thinking of Fitchburg Parks, and certainly the programming component of it, the willingness of the Bike Fitchburg group to man and to run the programs is really the relationship that different providers of the recreation department has. The recreation department will organize it and those kinds of things, but running the event is most often the difficult part to find the people that are willing to do it. So their willingness to provide this programming is really key to the whole project itself.
Sure. Any comments for Steve? Questions? Patrick?
Yeah, yeah, I can see, based on their criteria that you're using, that the King James Pocket Park there is certainly a good candidate for this. Are these versions of the repair stations, are they all Ceres products?
Yes.
Okay. In the King James Park, there's no shelter there. Is there any lighting right around there that would light up this station?
Yes, there's a nearby street light.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just
We're
thinking,
proposing, that brings up a point that I forgot to mention previously. In the packet is, I believe, the master plan for that park, or at least the interim one until the park can be enlarged. We, in looking over the area without having availability of this plan, I thought that the area that's marked for the grill to be where it should go. It is a high traffic area because there are 2 Madison Metro stops and a Verona school bus stop.
Yeah.
Right across the street or right adjacent to it. There is lighting. There's already trash containers, so it would keep the place clean, and they're serviced by the park. So we would have to rejigger the master plan to move the grill. There is no grill right now, but that's the point where the grill is planned. Right now, there's no sign. There's a picnic table where the plan shows a sign. But I think that these are, this will be not movable, but I think that the plan is flexible enough that we can get everything in there that's being proposed.
Are you suggesting that it's going to be adjacent to the sidewalk, or is it going to be in the park a little distance?
As you know, there is no sidewalk there. I would propose to put it up the hill toward the basketball court so that it would clear any future sidewalk, but be fairly close to the sidewalk.
Sure.
Something like this, like many things that you're aware of, it needs the eyes on the street to keep it safe. It's a sturdy thing, and it's designed to be vandal and graffiti resistant, but that doesn't mean that we should put it in a dark corner.
Right.
Well, that's,
So it would be both most convenient for use because people will approach this from the street. It provides its own advertising, not shown on the photos because they're not installed. There will be a decal that will be put on the blank face facing the street that indicates that it's a public bicycle repair station. It has QR codes so that a person with a smartphone could go to how to change a flat or how to get your chain back on your front sprocket. And it would have the donors and a contact person. And I have not yet determined whether they can be customized. The other three point to the City of Madison bicycle coordinator. And we would want to change that to point to our bicycle coordinator or our parks director.
Patrick, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
is the street light that's shown in the park in King James, is that existing? Not yet? Okay. Does that look like the good location for the street light?
For, in the future, sure.
Okay, well, I mean, it looks like it's way in the back of the park, right?
Yep, that street light is kind of designed as a security light. And as Steve referred to, the parcel to the west was, you know, if the parcel to the west ever becomes part of the city, I think that security light would be a good addition at that point in time. At this point, there's houses and things right there. So, and they actually added a street light, so adjacent to King James Way Park. So there's some good street lightage there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the non-vandalizing the tools and everything is good too, but I'm just thinking of, well, I will sometimes ride my bike, you know, even though it's dark, in the evening on a nice summer evening, and if somebody is stuck trying to repair their bike and they have this repair station with no light around there, it makes it a lot difficult. So just for the sake of using the repair station late into the evening, a light would help.
Yes, there is light there, just to be clear, Patrick.
There, but Scott said it's
Street
not.
light illuminates that area.
Okay, from the street, and then there's an additional street light that's planned for the rear of this park? Is that the story
That's
here?
correct, and that hasn't been installed
Okay.
at this point because it really, until we get the property to the west, we wouldn't need it.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. You probably have a motion and a second to approve this item. Don't all jump in.
Motion to approve the proposal for Just Bikes Coalition for the repair station in King James Way Park.
I'll second.
Second, all right. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Steve. It
Thanks.
looks like a very worthwhile project. I'd like to see some more of these in our parks. Maybe, you know, you should even consider buying some. Do you know how much they cost?
They cost $915. They cost another $135 for the wheel chalk and maybe about $100. About $100 for the wheel chalk, about $130 for the all-weather pump, vandal-proof pump. There are a number of them in the city, including the one at the Dolly Bike Hub maintained by the Parks Department. That is the standard, not the deluxe one. There's one on the Capital City Trail along East Clayton Road. There is one at the Green Bridge at Fish Hatchery Road that was installed by Addisys. There is one at the ramp, the west ramp of the Cannonball, or the Military Ridge Path near Saris itself, on the way down to the Military Ridge Path that Saris installed and that the city installed a adjacent drinking fountain. So we have quite a few of them in the city now. And, it's a very common thing for a business that wants to be bike friendly. Oh, there's one in front of the clubhouse at the Addison Apartments. So they're around and they're mapped on OpenStreetsMap and you can find them all. But we certainly, it does bring me to another point with respect to Janelle's non-agenda item. Bike Fitchburg, and I'm sure I can speak for the Fitchburg's City Bicycle Committee, are very eager to provide input for things like how parks will work for bicycles. We very often see, I'll give you an example, the new park through the Fahey Fields the new path through the Fahey Fields neighborhood dead ends on the McGaw Park access road, but does not connect to the McGaw Park access road path.
We've noticed that.
There's just a terrace
Or
there.
my
And so
neighbors
you have to
have
drive across the grass unless you want to go down the access road.
Yep.
So we can spot those kinds of things in a plan and help you avoid mistakes.
Sure.
So we have a lot of volunteers that all bike like crazy, and we can always weigh in. So please call us, and we'll be glad to pitch in.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for your approval.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Keep in touch, Steve. Thanks.
All right, I'll be signing off. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, next on our agenda. 5D, Resolution R224-20, amending the 2021 General Fund and Capital Projects Fund budgets. Scott, you want to?
I can certainly kick it off. I know Misty Dodge, our finance director, interim city administrator, is here, that she can certainly help us navigate through this item. But as you recall, there was a $92,971 budget hole. In order to keep the recreational staff for the 2021 operating budget, we had to fill that hole. And actually, the first item on within your packet is Resolution 223-20. And that was a resolution that was approved that actually filled $75,197 of that budget hole. And that's why I provided this resolution as part of your packet. So the discussion tonight is, I did include in your packet a memo that I included, which had different options to potentially fill that budget hole. And one of the items actually was part of our CIP, 6259, which is that sheet after the R223-20. I just wanted to give you an update on that account. The CIP accounts, those roll over from year to year. And we did have a balance at the end of the year of $56,541. And we do, if you add to that the annual allocation of $58,000, we do have $114,541.13 in that CIP account, which is potentially another option. But also understand that we've got some outstanding projects, which I included in your packet, that we haven't completed, which one of them was a drinking fountain at Oak Meadow Park. And then there was another one, I believe it was a natural playground at Quarry Hill, for a total of $30,000 of outstanding projects. Along with, in 2021, we had $45,000 scheduled for this CIP account. So I just wanted to let you know that, with the outstanding projects from last year, along with the project scheduled for this year, there would be enough money in there to potentially, use those dollars to fill the hole. And and I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Misty. Certainly within my memo, and I think the resolution, there's a lot of different, I guess I view that there's 3 potential options for the Park Commission to recommend to fill that hole of $17,774. One would be through operating budget that we have scheduled for 2021. And in my memo, I kind of listed, we could potentially take $10,000 from the median landscape budget, $4,000 from bike path maintenance, $500 from basketball court maintenance, $3,000 from ball diamond maintenance, and $500 from the WPRA conference, which would be part of the potentially part of the operating budget. And then I also included that CIP account. And then actually too, there's going to be another resolution after this one, R1021, which Alder Tom Clowder provided an option to, in the 2021 budget, we've got 2 recreational vehicle replacements scheduled. So he is suggesting that we defer one of those replacements to next year and use, 17,000 of the, I think it was 29,000 or so that was scheduled for one of those vehicles. And I guess that what my thought would be is, and this is similar to what the Finance Committee did prior to the Common Council meeting when they acted on this. There was a couple different proposals, and the Finance Committee approved the ones that they would okay with, and it may have been more than the dollar amount that was needed, and then they didn't recommend the ones that they weren't interested in. So, and is that fair, Misty, that in theory they could, the Park Commission could approve all 3 of the potential spots for the allocation, and then the Finance and Common Council would decide which one to utilize. So I think that the Council and the Finance is really looking to see how the Park Commission feels about these 3 different options between the 2 resolutions.
So we should probably be including discussion on both these D and E, correct?
Well, I think probably what we should do is take them individually, Mark.
Right.
We talk about the different options in D, take a vote on it, and then go to the E, which is a separate resolution, and take a separate vote on that too.
Okay.
So I think we should separate them all and actually take a vote on the different, unless you'd advise different, Misty.
Nope, I think what you laid out as a plan is perfect. So the things that Parks Commission is open to, approve those ones, and ones that you are not open to, I would deny those, and just like you said, vote on them, each resolution separately, and amend the resolution if needed.
Yeah. And that's what I would do, is I would take the Park Commission's action and amend or approve and put that in the comments, and then move it forward.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to Scott's comments, or Misty, or you?
Not much. I thought he did a great job kind of laying out how we got here and, the different components. The only thing I would like to add from my finance director hat is that if you do delay something that was planned for 2021 to 2022, just remember that the funding would need to be allocated in 2022 to do that project that was delayed.
Okay. Open it up for discussion.
I have a question. Maybe Scott might be able to best answer it, I would think. How does the system get by with reducing $10,000 in median maintenance? What does that look like in practical application?
We actually increased that money from 50 to 70 because we were having difficulty in getting contractors to do it. Along with there's more medians and things like that. And I would say that our operating budget, if you were to ask me, is really tight. So I guess from my perspective, the operating budget, it'd be great if we could keep that whole, and then utilize one of the other two options that we've got. But that's just from an operational standpoint, and there, well, if you look at my, maybe just to talk a little bit more about that, on page 21 of your packet, I provide those, the first park operating budget, the first bullet is 10,000 from the 290 account, mowing and median landscape contracting. We would reduce it from 70 to 60, but we did increase it from 2020 to 2021 from 50 to 70. The other one is the bike path maintenance, reduce that from 8,000 to 4,000. Basketball court maintenance.
What kind of maintenance, bike path maintenance, meaning what? Repaving or?
Yep,
Okay.
And I think they utilize these dollars for crack filling.
Okay.
We have a different CIP account that is actually utilized for bike path maintenance and repair. Then, 500, reduce the basketball court maintenance from 1,000 to 500. And that's basically we paint lines and do those kinds of things. Ball diamond maintenance materials from 6,000 to 3. And then $500 is for the WPRA conference. And then from the rec department is $500 from the WPRA conference. So those are all annual operating budgets.
Is it assumed that the ball diamond maintenance material, is that white striping powder or something like that?
That, along with ball diamond dry, along with physical material, we at times will buy additional material to add to the ball diamonds.
Okay, so that may go very well with less recreation activity going into
no,
this year.
No, I would tend to say that we want to keep the ball diamonds safe, independent if we've got rec programs. We still have rental people and general park users that are using the diamond, so that would be more. We definitely want to keep the ball diamonds up to speed and filled with material and well maintained. So the idea that because we're going to have less rec programs on there potentially, I would not say that because of that we can reduce the amount of maintenance material there.
What I was thinking of is maybe on the idea that maybe some tournaments or something wouldn't be held because of pandemic stuff. So
Yeah,
the field doesn't need to be prepared or striped or something as often.
Well, and again, this is the physical material. This is the ball diamond material that you put in to level the diamond and those kinds of things. It's not the maintenance that you drag them and those kinds of things. This is the physical material that we add to the ball diamonds. That you lose, when it's dusty and things like that, you lose material. And you want to keep them in good repair.
Okay, this is like adding the fine gravel or something like that. Not, in other words, the white striping powder.
No, there wouldn't be as much because we wouldn't have as many games.
Yeah, that's what I was getting.
That would be included in these supplies.
Okay, so just kind of reducing
Yep.
a little.
And then,
Excuse me, Scott, the material you're talking about on the diamonds, is that the material that helps it dry out faster or?
well, what it does is it actually, because a ball diamond is crowned from the pitcher's mound off, because what you really want to do is you want it to naturally sheet drain off. But what happens after you drag it and things like that, there's a lip on the outside.
Yeah.
And what happens is the water stops, and then you got a puddle, and then it takes time for you to, so what the material will do is it'll keep that crown.
Sure.
It's kind of an investment to save time on preparation of the diamonds, really.
Mark?
Yeah, David.
Scott, you put together this list, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, and I,
Turn your mic on.
well,
It is on.
it is on.
It's on.
Oh,
Okay, and I would trust your judgment. I look at parks. I don't have any idea how to manage them, how they are actually operated. And so I would have faith in you as a director that you've made choices that make sense. You seem to be consistent about taking just a portion of the money and not totally eliminating things. I do have one question about the WPRA, Wisconsin Park Recreation Association.
Correct.
And that's a annual conference?
That's an annual conference, right?
Okay, this year it would be virtual?
It was canceled last year. This year, yeah, it typically is in November. So
Okay.
it may or may not be virtual, depending on,
Okay, well, that's fine. It's kind of irrelevant. So I think, I trust your judgment. I think we should not belabor the point as to how to save a dollar.
and then the second potential is that park CIP, where I explain about, projects that are scheduled for 2021, which is, $10,000 for the replacement of the basketball court at Rimrock, outfield fencing at Hugo Jamestown, Tower Hill Diamond backstop. And like I say, with that account, we do have, which I provided in that brief report at the beginning, we've got, as I mentioned, 56 carried over with 58s for a total of, and I think I included that in my agenda comments too. So at the end of the day, the question is all, neither, which ones would you feel comfortable in recommending forward to the Finance Committee as potential options?
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, Scott, thank you for putting this together. It was nice knowing all of the options that you were kind of thinking through. I agree with David where I do think you've obviously put thought into this, that I would love to know which one you would recommend. I mean, you'll have 2 staff members that'll be able to be flexed, so do some of these cuts impact the work that they could do? Like, I would love to support what works best for your department and which one you would recommend.
And if you were to ask me that, Sarah, I would recommend, certainly the best one that I can think of is that Park CIP 6259, because over the years we saved dollars with the projects that we've done, and fortunately that CIP rolls over. So to take 17,000 out of that account would not. We would just continue to do what we're scheduled to do. So that would be the least disruptive to what we've got planned for 2021.
Patrick?
I think I need a clarification on what we are choosing between here.
Well, we've got in really there's a $17,774 deficit.
That's what we're looking for, right?
That's what we're looking for. And really, I think the Common Council and the Finance Committee will make that final decision. I think you need to say, I'm okay with taking 10,000 out of the median and mowing landscaping. I'm not okay with taking 4,000 out of the 290. I think it's each of those individual things. And if you're just not in favor of taking any park operating budget, you could just generally say, we're not in favor of taking any of the operating budget.
Well, those 5 bullets there, they add up to approximately 17,000, or I suppose the correct figure, right?
Well, it's 10, 14,
Maybe a little more, a
14,
little over.
17, 18,500 it adds up to.
Mm-hmm.
Or so, I think. Quick calculations.
So you kind of need all of those 5 there in order to hit the 17,000
Well,
number was.
in theory, you could take 10 out of the medians and 17 out of the CIP, and, there's whole different things that you can do. I think just to make it easier, I guess I see 3 options. I see park operating, I see the CIP 6259, and then I see Alder Clouder's resolution of R1021.
Okay, I get it, yeah.
So I guess I see those as the 3. You guys can
That's our 3 areas then, the parks operating budget, like it says above the 5 bullets.
Yep.
Or the park CIP 6259 with the 1 bullet and paragraph there.
And you can choose both of them.
Yeah, mix and match. Or Alder Clouder's suggestion of 1 vehicle.
Or you can choose all 3 of them. That you'd be okay with all 3, and then the finance and the common council, they're just looking for what your recommendation would be. And if you say
Okay,
no to operating, yes to CIP 6259, and yes to the other one, they'll take that under consideration. They might say, well, you know what? We appreciate your thoughts and your ideas, but we're taking it out of operating. So we're just providing what you think it would be the best.
okay, so then I have a question for Misty on some clarification, and I saw something earlier that seemed a little confusing, so I just figured out what I saw. Resolution 22320, the be it further, no, wait a minute, the now be it hereby resolved paragraph in there lists some things about CIP 6262 and some figures, and the last phrase in there says each in the amount of $75,197. Now, jump from there to the other resolution, R22420, and the last be it further resolved at the bottom of the page is worded similar but with some small differences. CIP 6259, that's different. And then it lists, let's see. Well, there's, yeah, expense budget, recreation fees, revenue budget, capital property tax. Some of the numbers are the same between those two paragraphs, some are different, each in the amount of $45,000. So what is this about?
So R 2223 was amended by council, and they approved the parking lot piece, but they did not approve the other piece. I, of course, can't think of which the other piece is at this point. That's where that 17,000 that we still need to identify to balance the budget. So then looking at 224, that resolution was based off of Scott's memo. So yes, right now we're only looking for the 17,000 number, but originally he had offered up as an option a bigger amount in that CIP. So if you are open to it, you could amend the dollar amount. Otherwise, council can amend it when they make the final decision. And then that word each, that's just balancing the budget. So we are decreasing the amount we need to collect from rec fees, and then we're decreasing an expense to offset it. And then with the CIP ones, we're actually transferring from one pot of money to another pot of money. So all of the different account numbers need to be changed by that same dollar amount.
Okay, yeah, I was sort of figuring out that it's a kind of a lump of, let's see here, the general fund versus 6262. Is that the way to read it?
So the rec program fees that we're expecting to be quite a bit less than budget is in the general fund. So if the offset that's ultimately approved by council is also in the general fund, it's just two account numbers. But if it's from capital and you're moving it into the general fund, it just takes an extra accounting step in order to move it. So that's why it would have extra account numbers.
So then does 224 replace 223?
No.
Or are they're both active resolutions?
223 has been approved as amended by
Yeah.
council. So that one is done at this point.
Yeah.
But since they only approved part of it and not the whole amount, it did not account for the full deficit that we're projecting. So now 224 is on the table, but only looking for the piece that we still need to fill.
So in 223, the 75,197 is getting transferred. That's accurate and that's in place.
That's done.
That's a done deal.
Yep.
Correct.
So now we're looking at some additional money, 45,000 in 224.
That's the amount that was in the original resolution, back when there were a variety of options, all looking for the full dollar amount. So the 45,000 is what was originally identified as being available to fill the hole. Now that the hole is smaller, that amount is no longer 45,000 that we need, it's now the $17,000 number
Okay.
that's mentioned
That's a good-
before.
That's
But the resolution has not been changed from the original from last month.
Okay, so this is getting revised and we're in the middle of that for 224.
I would amend the resolution and send it forward.
Okay, I see.
I have a question, Mark.
Yeah, David?
I would like to strongly express the fact that I'm extremely disappointed that we're here talking about this. I think we need to have a resolution that gets us out of this predicament in the future, and that the employees are treated like other employees, and to have it be contingent on revenue is a failed idea. So I would want to amend this resolution that the Parks Director work with the city staff and the alders to find out a permanent solution such that we aren't in this predicament in the future. Said another way, what city treats their park employees as in this manner? I think what's happened is really unfortunate. You have somebody who's worked for the city for 10 years and they're told, we're going to give you a different job at half the salary, or we're not going to have a job, somebody who's just hired. I mean, this is unfortunate. So I think we can debate the little parts of how do we find the money, which is great, but let's get out of this predicament in terms of the future.
Could you,
Yeah.
could you advise Misty on how something like that could potentially, is that something that the Park Commission can author, or is that something that a couple alders would have to author?
So ultimately, it comes down to a budget issue. So when the council adopts the budget, they assumed a level of recreation fees in order to balance the budget. So if the council so chose that they didn't want to rely on those rec fees any longer to fund the budget, they could do that. They could budget for zero, and then if money comes in, that's fantastic. But I would say the budget process is tough, and I think it would be difficult for council to find a way to fund activities without that revenue, which is why they have been relying on it for recent budgets.
Okay, I think there's a way in terms of you can set aside the revenues and use it as an offset. Does the city of Fitchburg not have a rainy day fund? Don't you have some contingencies? I mean, are you budgeting and allocating everything to these different discretions such that there isn't any flexibility?
So the council there's a $12,500 contingency amount in the budget. It's been the same for several years. And I've been advocating to the council that that dollar amount really is too small for a budget our size. $12,500 is not going to get us through some of these hurdles. So I think that is a big part of the problem, is that our contingency funding is not at the level that I think is best practice.
Yeah, I would ask City of Verona, City of Oregon, Monona, do any of these public entities fund salaries out of some type of contingency arrangement that we have with the revenue? I think it's really short-sighted, and I think it's embarrassing, frankly.
So I would guess that most municipalities do budget for rec fees, similar to how we do. I know other municipalities do have a higher contingency amount that could help address unforeseen circumstances going forward. I don't know those specific communities that you mentioned, but I would guess that a lot of municipalities do budget and rely on revenues. Whether or not they account for a reduction in revenues as the proposal that was brought forward or not, that I couldn't speak to. But there are a variety of ways that we have now looked at to address that lost revenue.
Okay, so you're saying you're working on it. You're aware it's a mistake.
I think the lack of a sufficient contingency fund in the budget is a concern that council will hopefully address in the future if there's funding available. I think that would be a better practice to have. But then as far as, relying on rec fees, I think that is a reasonable request for budget. And I think it's our responsibility as staff to bring forward to the council when revenues aren't going to be met as expected during the budget process. So that's why we brought these resolutions forward, or at least the original one to start, and then these other ones have come as other ideas too. I think that's the process.
Well, I would think twice coming to work here. Is that how the Department of Public Works is funded, their salaries? Do they have contingent revenues? No. Isn't that correct?
I would like to clarify, though, that there isn't a direct relationship between the rec program fee revenues that are collected and the staff amounts. So it's all part of the general fund. And when the reduction in revenues was identified and projected based on the situation, that's the issue that came forward. So you'll notice in that original resolution about the layoffs, it didn't say that it was just because of funding. The layoffs were also because of workload. And we all know that there's workload in other areas, but in that particular department, there wasn't. So that's why that was brought forward as an option for council to consider.
Who drafted that? Who brought forward that motion?
The resolution.
Yes.
So the resolution was brought forward by staff for a conversation for council to have.
And who is staff? Is that the city manager?
So, I mean, ultimately, the city administrator directs all of the staff, but I'll say I was involved in that conversation as well as the person that monitors the budget. We discussed it with the mayor, who also okays the agenda items that they can be brought forward to council.
Yeah, well, again, I think the way the employees have been treated is really unfair. And I think that it reflects very poorly on the city of Fitchburg in terms of its administration or the decisions that are being made. These are people. They're not expendables.
I hear you.
So Scott, if we're taking your recommendation, I'm hearing you to say that the park's operating budget would be really, it wouldn't really work for you. I mean,
Correct.
you've
Correct.
adjusted some of the fees, sure. I mean, for the median raising from 50 to 70 in 2021, the raise was justified. The additional medians, the ability to get contractors. So I guess I would feel comfortable taking your recommendation and applying logic on how, yes, it gets 18,000, but actually being best for the city and being best for the parks, that doesn't seem like the right path. So I guess I would feel comfortable recommending that we don't pursue that first option of cutting the park's operating budget. But I don't know, would you like me to make a motion for that, or do you want a discussion on that, or what would you recommend?
Well, I would certainly, recommend that the best of the two options there would be the park CIP, but certainly for Robert's rules, you could make a motion, because I believe that the resolution calls for all those different options. Our 224 lays out all those different options. So you could, in theory, say, I approve resolution R 22420, and just, identify that none of the operating budget ones would be, and I would understand what you're saying, and then I would go in and amend those resolutions where it basically we would amend that following, be it further resolved to change that from 40 or 75,000 or 45,000 to that 17. I think it's like 1774, and then we would just approve that. You just approve that resolution as amended.
Can I ask for the CIP? Is there a specific area? Because I mean, you did give additional details from where that could be pulled. Do you have a preference as to potentially where the money would pull from that, or would it?
It would come from the excess balance that we have, because we have 30 outstanding and 45 for this year, which is 75, and we've got 115. So the 17 would come from the 115, and we'd be like at 100. So that would just reduce that amount. Am I correct in that, Misty?
Yep, so I guess the best way would to leave that open-ended, to let staff decide, absent council direction otherwise. It would be up to Scott and his team to make that decision. If council or this team wants to say specifically which project, then you could identify it and make it clear. But personally, I would let Scott's team determine that.
Thank you. I guess then I would make a motion to approve resolution R 22420 by not moving forward with any of the proposed changes to the operating budget and relying on staff to make changes to the CIP as they deem fit. Does that seem fair?
How would that, are we deleting some whereas clauses? Is that,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would be, right, it would be, the now be it hereby resolved clause would be a limit because it's 14,500 or, right, those now be it hereby resolved, be it further resolved, be it further resolved, be it further resolved would be struck. And then the final be it further resolved that staff would determine, what that where that 17 would come from out of that CIP account.
okay, so your motion is to amend the resolution
Yep, yep.
as
Yeah.
Scott had recommended.
Yes, as Scott had recommended. Sorry, it's messy.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in this middle time that, yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, David. Scott, could you just review that one more time so that we get some clarity on this?
Certainly.
Sure
Now,
everybody's on the same page.
yep, the first whereas clauses are basically from the park operating budget, which is the 10,000 for the medians, 4,000 for the bike path maintenance, 500 for the basketball court maintenance, 3,000 for ball diamond maintenance material, and 500 for WPRA conferences for both the park and the rec, but the park commission says no, we're going to keep those intact. And then the CIP is at 6259, and as I mentioned, we've got $30,000 in outstanding projects that we still need to complete. We've got $45,000 worth of projects scheduled for 2021, but we do have an existing balance of 115. So by reducing that CIP account by that amount would still make us able to do the projects that we have scheduled for last year and this coming year.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Patrick, or
ahead.
Susan?
I agree with everything we're coming to a decision on, and just want to reiterate that taking from the operating budget, when you talk about now you're not going to fill the cracks here and you're going to not do this there, you end up with a greater cost in the subsequent years if you fall behind on some of those things. So I think what's being recommended, the motion Sarah Schrader made, makes the most sense.
Okay.
As
Other comments?
as I'm trying to follow this, of the three areas that we're choosing from, mix and match and all, the parks operating budget, the CIP 6259, and then the other third area was delaying that purchase of a vehicle.
But that's the next resolution, so
Oh, okay.
that's not included in this discussion here. So we're just acting on this resolution right now, and then we'll take up that next one next.
Okay.
Does that
Well,
help?
okay, I had something in mind that I wanted to say. I guess I will go ahead. I'm not trying to belabor this, but I have a point that I wanted to reach, related to David's comments about the staff being, affected by this budget. I agree that in the first view of this, it looks like the budget is short because of fees not collected, so let's drop the rec staff. That's what the first view of it looks like. But as I have followed this along, the way I am understanding it, which I think is the way it really is the budget was short, so the city council has to find money. Then they look citywide and figure who, in this case, doesn't have work to do, and unfortunately it comes right back to the rec staff. So that is why effectively it sounds like the rec staff are being picked on because they didn't bring in the revenue. But like Misty says, it's not a direct, this one caused that one. It's through the whole city budget, the general fund.
And at the end of the day, the city administrator the council decides that there needs to be layoffs, and then the
Right.
city administrator would decide where those layoffs
Right.
would come from.
Right, and that was the point where The city administrator could have picked out anybody.
Right.
And as was just discussed in some meetings, there's critical positions upstairs in City Hall here where there's one person that does a job. You can't lay off that person, the job will not get done. You could pick out Public Works or police, something like that, and start laying off people anywhere to reduce a budget, but those are all much more undesirable.
It was not an easy decision, that's
Right,
for
right.
sure.
So it came down to the rec staff don't have rec programs going on. They have a lot less work in front of them. They're the most eligible ones.
But, to David's point, I would argue, I'm sorry.
But, see, okay, so we're good on that so far. We agreed on that, that's correct?
Yep.
Okay, now, the other point that Dave was making that I agree with, that I was thinking of this too, is as I have understood this whole discussion going on for a while here, and we've had questions and we've had explanations, but it still seems a little, well, I think the way it goes is part of the salary of our two rec employees, Chad and Austin, are actually funded by or dependent on the rec fees that are brought in. No.
No, I would say that the rec department staff are part of the professional staff within the city. And then with the lack of revenue that was collected from the recreation department, the city administrator had to decide.
Yeah, okay.
Where is that cut going to have to come from?
Well, that seemed like a question that we had discussed in earlier meetings and everything, and at times, I mean, long past, we've been told none of the staff, including the rec staff, are funded by the fees that they bring in.
No,
But then we've also heard, at least I've heard another version that kind of says that the rec staff are partially funded by the rec fees that they bring in. So my point here, well, let me ask one question and I will make my point. Misty, are there other cases citywide where the general fund or the income of the city is based on fees collect? Let's say, does the city council or such, the fund rely on an expected number of speeding tickets written or building permits fees collected or things like that? Is that it also expected to come in a good year, just like we also expected rec fees to be collected?
Yes, the city budgets for multiple revenues in the general fund, including building permits and the court fines that you mentioned.
Okay.
Other things like that, that all goes into the revenue side of the general fund.
Right.
And that is the expenses that we want to fund. And there
Yeah.
isn't a direct correlation.
Yeah.
But they are tied.
Same as for the rec fees. So in other words, if people behave themselves and never were speeding, never had to go to court here for anything, any fines, or nobody put up a building or a house in a year and no fees were collected, that would have just as well caused shortfalls in the budget. Okay? So the point that I would like to make, and I was thinking of this also, we're still hearing that the rec, I don't know, this is two different versions that I keep hearing. If the rec department staff if their salaries are dependent on, in any way, any partial amount or anything, on the fees that they bring in, it might not be part of this resolution right here and our discussion right here, but I think that at some time, in some way, the Park Commission could and should make a recommendation that recreation fees do not cover the salary of the recreation employees, just like, let's say, the police are not dependent on how many speeding tickets are written.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
well, at the end of the day, the idea that the recreational staff are permanent full-time staff and they're independent of the revenue that's brought in, that's a commitment that the community makes to have those services offered.
That's the way I've always heard it, but it just seems in this discussion, in this particular situation right here, I mean, I was pretty sure that I heard it, that partially the salaries of the rec staff were dependent on the rec fees.
Yeah, it's,
You're saying no.
well, the fee policy that we have is the indirect expenses, which is the staff, are not collected as part of the fee that is collected for rec programs. The direct expense, which is for the equipment and officials and all of those kinds of things, the expenses that are incurred by the user fee who participates, that's paid by the user fee. We do have a policy where we have to collect 108%.
Right?
So that does cut into the professional staff, but I was not, you know, it really, the rec fees are not set up to per se, you know, take care of the professional rec staff. I think what Dave is saying that, you know what, independent of the revenue that's brought in, a city of our size should make a commitment to the community that they're gonna have professional park and rec staff available to provide these programs, independent of the money that's brought in.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe I'm getting things a little bit mixed up or so. Maybe it's part of those indirect fees or something or other like that. But along this whole discussion right here, it sounded to me like the two rec employees, staff were somehow or other partially funded by some fees
Yeah.
collected, unique to all employees in the city.
I would say, you know, I'll let Misty respond, but that's, after listening to Misty, that's not how it's set up. It's the revenue, wherever it comes from, goes into the general revenue.
Yeah.
And then if the revenue is down, the city administrator's got to decide, okay,
Okay.
what expenses do you cut?
Well, maybe there isn't a problem here, but that's what I was trying to pick up on is, as I was hearing it, as it seemed to me, if the rec staff partially are funded, dependent, you know, directly on some fees collected, that's where we need to make a recommendation from the commission here that they be fully paid by the general fund like all other
I think we're
employees.
saying the same thing, Patrick. I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
Well, I would just add, I think, Misty, you've said the contingency fund is inadequate. And that's what the council needs to address, because I think it is unfair to be in a predicament that we're in, where these two employees were singled out and said, well, and then what was offered them was not something that I think was respectful. So whoever does the hard thoughts about it, I think from a human service side, it was pretty cruel.
Susan?
I have a question, Misty, too. What happened to the $12,000 rainy day fund? Was it used for anything?
Nope, that is still established. It has not been touched for 2021. It was spent in full in 2020, though.
Okay, so what might have been available to offset the losses we're talking about right now, that money was already spent.
For 2020, yes, but
Yeah.
in theory, that
Right.
12,500
We're
for
feeling- yeah.
2021 could be reallocated to this. At the time, it was just not enough money to fill the
Yeah.
whole deficit.
So you could take 12,000 from the rainy day fund and we'd only be looking for $5,000? Is that what we're saying?
That's not the resolutions that we have
I
before
know,
us.
I understand that. I'm just asking. Nobody thought of it?
Don't muddy the waters.
That would be an option, though. Yes, council is honestly able to amend the budget in many different ways, and that would be one that they could choose to do if they wanted to. Probably through a separate resolution, though, so that it could be noticed properly.
Okay.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor and a second to revise the resolution, or amend the resolution, I should say. If there is no further discussion, we'll vote it on it. So hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the amended resolution R 2024-20 signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carried.
Excellent.
All
Thank you for that
right,
discussion, everyone.
Resolution R 1021, is that still on?
Oh, yeah, yep, that's another resolution that is being offered And maybe to explain that, if I could, if you take a look at page 30 in your, or actually it's page 32 of your packet. All of these pieces of equipment are included in the equipment budget. And if you look at vehicle number 258 and 259, it's highlighted in yellow. Those are the two recreational vehicles. One's a Chevy and one's the Ford Explorer. And if you keep rolling to the right, you can see in the green that they're scheduled to be replaced in 2021. And then if you keep going to the right, they're both budgeted at $29,500. So what Mr. Clowder is suggesting is that one of those vehicles be delayed, and we take the 17,774 from one of those two vehicles. And so we'd only be able to replace one, and then we'd be, we couldn't replace the second one.
Okay, discussion. Oh, Misty, do you have any comments on this too?
The only thing I would say is that this is a good example of one. If the purchase is delayed, even if it's just the $17,000 to 2022, in order to complete the purchase in 2022, an additional $17,000 will need to be put in there above what is currently planned for in the CIP. So that may be difficult for the council, but is an option.
That means it would have to be refunded in the next budget, right?
Correct, with new money.
Further discussion?
And just to also further clarify, if this were the option, you need that new money because there are other vehicles slated for replacement in 2022, and we can't keep just pushing vehicles down the line either. It can be done, but it's an exercise. That's what okay? I got that, all right.
Sure.
We'd have to we'd have to make that account whole with additional money.
Wouldn't that kind of be the case for replacing the money that we are cutting in the one we just passed, 224?
There's sufficient dollars within that account with money not used in 2020 and 2021, so you wouldn't lose anything. You'd lose that money, but it would be reallocated the next year at the same amount. We wouldn't have to add it because like I say, we've done well over the last several years and getting projects that are less expensive. So in theory, we've saved that $17,000.
So does that mean there's an income stream in 2020, I guess, and we're reducing some expenses there according to 224?
What
221?
we just approved in 2024 is that we get allocated every year.
That's for 2021.
Yeah, we got.
So we have an income stream for 2021, and we're reducing some of the expenses in what we just passed, 224. When we get to the next budget for 2022, the income stream comes through again to give money for the next budget for the next year.
We get an annual allocation in that account.
Okay, versus delaying a vehicle means that new money has to be found in a budget to replace the vehicle in the next year.
It has to be added to the budget.
Yes,
Right.
Are these hand-me-down vehicles from Public Works?
They are, but again, they're used during the summer generally for the recreational staff and those kinds of things. They need to be replaced. We certainly wouldn't need, we could do with just one replacement, but the thing is where do you got to find.
Do they haul around a lot of rec?
Yep. That's what they use to go to the tennis courts and all of those kinds of. Well, and Chad has to go here and there for things.
What I was getting at was, is it an option to get something a little more efficient than a pickup truck? And
Well, they're not pickup trucks. One's an Explorer, and the other one is, well, it does have a bed on it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I guess one of the things that I'm seeing is this, all three of these areas seem kind of equal. It's either, what we just passed here, not taking from the park's operating budget, but we are okay with taking it from the CIP for the parks versus delaying a parks vehicle. So it's all parks area things.
Sure.
And even the 75,000 out of the parking lot was for McKee Farms parking lot, so that was in theory taken from the parks too, so, which is,
Is that only for the McKee main parking lot, that 75,000?
there, yep,
Not any other streets or anything else somewhere else?
no.
Just, okay, so again, even that's already approved, I guess.
yes,
75,000 to let the McKee parking lot park, or the McKee Park parking lot stretch out
stretch out,
longer.
right.
Yeah, okay. That all seems fair to me then.
What's that?
That all seems fair to
Yeah,
me then.
it's the Parks Department, that's, the Park and Rec Department, that's filling the void, if you would.
Right.
Which I think is.
Right, out of our own funds.
Yep, yep. Well, they're allocated
Well,
from the taxpayer, but
mhm.
we're managing them within our.
Yes, that's
within
what
our-
I mean, yes,
Within our own house. yeah,
yes.
In our improvements.
If there's no further discussion, we will need a motion in a second.
So Scott, these vehicles, they're working, like, I mean, if we delay this project, are you going to be without a vehicle? Like
No.
just reading the worst condition of the Silverado, I mean, is it possible you're not even going to have a vehicle, or what's your opinion?
No, they're operational, so, they maintain them well and those kinds of things, but they're 2000s and 2003, so, they're getting there. It's not like they're falling apart or anything like that. So to delay it for 1 year or,
They're probably not high mileage
no.
vehicles anyway, right? Yeah. Do we have a motion?
I guess I would
Second.
suggest
Sorry.
that we give an approval to this so that the council has two areas to choose from,
I guess.
vehicle or,
And again, that's what areas do you feel comfortable in providing and again, they can decide to take it out of operating too. It's, they're
Yes.
just looking for your
our
recommendation.
recommendation, right? I know that, there's a little bit more difficult to find new money to replace a vehicle in a following year, like Misty says. But I'm suggesting if we're okay with that, let the council solve the future budget problem for the vehicle.
I have a question. Can we say that, well, sure, it's obviously, we're not deciding, but our first choice is what we already did approve, is taking out of the CIP. And if that doesn't find favor with the council, well, then this is their other option. We're not going to speak against it, but that's our second priority? Is
Yep.
that what others are thinking, or is that?
Well, and that's what Sarah, if she get asked the question, she can report
see.
what the park commission,
Sure,
if she gets asked that question, then she can share that information with the council.
okay.
Yeah, I think there should be some comfort level at least conveyed to the council as to whether we would be in favor of it.
Yeah, that makes it that we have a first choice, a second choice, and if they don't like theirs, there was a third choice that we are not recommending, but yes, they can overrule.
Right.
No, I think that sounds good. Mm-hmm.
And Sarah, is there connection to are you in finance as well, or no?
I'm not, I'm in works, but I definitely will be vocal within the council meeting as to how we have a preference, and Scott's our expert. We're really involved in the parks and we're hearing from residents as to how much they value the park. So I will definitely plan to be vocal on what our first and second choices are.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that, but, you know,
So Patrick, did you make a motion?
I wanted to see what the other commission members felt, but
Okay.
yeah, it seems like we're okay with that. So I'll make a motion then to approve resolution R10-21.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second? Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Voting on the motion, all those in favor of signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
aye. All those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, now we're down to communications, which I believe we are.
Yeah. I did, should I go, Mark? I did have an update on the Curry Court Old Indian Trail flooding project. If you recall, a couple months back, the Park Commission approved or okayed the firm to come in and evaluate this area. I did watch the webinar that was held last night, and actually the firm is coming up with 5 different options on how to handle the water within that whole area. I think they're gonna, whittle it down to 3 and then come up with a recommendation, and then at some point it certainly is gonna come before the Park Commission. But at the end of the day, it's really the goal here is to help the flooding in that whole area drain better. But at the end of the day, we, as the owner of the Gold Edition, is, we're going to get a benefit from that, in that parcel is going to become more usable, which is great.
Unless they dig it out as a pond, which is somebody attending the meeting suggested that, but that was not feasible.
Well, and the groundwater is so low, is so high there
It's a
that,
pond already.
yeah.
And I actually drew up a proposal of mine that I submitted to Claudia Guy. So I don't know, it may sort of meet in with one of the company's proposals. I'm just interested in see if my proposal gets anywhere.
If you are interested, I do have a PDF of that webinar. I can certainly get it to you if you're interested in that. Just let me know.
I am, because it's in my neighborhood association area.
Boy, send me a reminder, and
Okay.
I'll get you a copy. And then the second, another item is the North Fish Hatchery Road Neighborhood Center Hub RFP. We did, I think I included in your packet a little bit of the timeline of this project. What we did do is Wade put together the bidding document, and it was out to bid. We actually had a meeting while the design engineers, they had an opportunity to offer any questions that they had with the RFP. Then we had a Zoom meeting with all the responses to those questions, and actually there was, I would say, 10 or 12 companies that were attending that Zoom meeting. And then actually we finalized there was an additional question, so that's going to be promoted out to everybody that is interested in it. There is a deadline for proposals on January 13th. Wade is working on an interview panel, which is going to be the group that's going to interview the top 3 candidates for this work, and then certainly we'll make a recommendation to the council, and then it'll come to the Park Commission, and then we'll begin that design engineering work.
Yeah, I don't know, Scott, I have some concerns. I know how this project's been moving along, but all these brick and mortar projects are good, especially this one is gonna be very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
yeah.
there's some ongoing expenses with staffing and who knows whatever else they're
Oh, yeah.
gonna need. That, it can't be just looked at purely as a brick and mortar project.
Right, absolutely. And to that point, there's dollars allocated in the budget for its construction, and then we'll work on an operating budget proposal for 2022 to operate the facility.
Is this something that would go to some kind of, what am I going to say, a vote at the voting box, or with the council? Is that purely a council decision? Referendum, that's the word I'm looking for.
No, we've got the dollars, the council approved the money for the project. It's basically coming from parkland dedication for the construction, along with borrowing, depending on what the cost of the project's going to be. The operating certainly is going to be a city budget. We got to operate the facility.
Well, I hope I'm not the only one, because there's, even in Madison, some of these community centers rent out space, and,
Well,
they seem to function, but,
Well, and actually, that's going to be, Wade has been working with a lot of nonprofit providers of services, and there certainly could potentially be space that could be rented. There's going to be community space and things like that. So there will be some revenue that's brought in to offset the operation.
I mean, it can't be overlooked that a lot of these apartment complexes have meeting rooms, weight rooms, pools. I mean, the neighborhoods aren't without services, but, they have a lot of meeting rooms. But anyway, Patrick, you had your hand up. I'm not going to editorialize too much until I see what's going to be in their plans, so.
So that is, I guess I wanted to report that's moving along.
Well, isn't this something, if I remember, like a $5 million building project?
It's a 2.4 million
2.4, okay.
on the north side. On the south side is up to 5 million.
Okay, so this is like 7.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's, a lot of it is coming out of the park funds?
The park dedication, fee in lieu of parkland dedication, right?
From that area or
From the
citywide?
community, from the citywide. But
Citywide.
it's all fee in lieu of parkland dedication that can be utilized for a community park. This has
Okay,
been identified
community
as.
park idea, yeah.
Yep,
okay.
this has been identified. And actually too, a lot, there's a lot coming from the juice plant project east of Fish Hatchery. So it's going to go back into the area, which is great.
Okay, so there are funds expected coming from development and additional
We've
units
got
being built in.
funds already collected.
Okay.
That's allocated for it.
You mentioned about a meeting. I'm kind of taking it that it was not a public meeting, it was more of like a contract meeting for potential vendors to discuss this?
Yeah, we put out the RFP. The vendors, they had an opportunity to provide us questions from the RFP. So we received those questions and was able to work with the engineering department to come up with the answers to those questions. So then we had a Zoom meeting where Wade put a presentation together that answered all the questions. And then there was one additional question. So we had like 14 questions, and we've got an answer to that. So Wade is going to provide that information out to everybody, so everyone is clear on what the RFP is.
Well, what I'm wondering is that meeting of interest to the public? Does Fact TV have a recording of it?
No.
Is it available on demand?
No.
It was not a recorded meeting, or?
No, this was
It was
just
for vendors?
yeah, this is
contractors.
just they had
Okay.
questions about the
Okay.
RFP, and
Okay.
we provided answers. And
I'm just thinking in case people want to follow this closer along in this
well, what'll happen?
whole idea.
So what we'll do is we'll get the proposals. We'll narrow them down with some help from staff to get 3, and then we'll have an interview panel that'll bring the companies in. And actually, hopefully Katie might be, as a park commission member, she'll be on it. Wade and I are going to be on it. And then there's a couple other, either Bill or Tracy from the engineering department is going to be on the panel. So we're trying to get a diverse look at it, and then interview 3 or so, 2 or 3 proposals, and go from there.
Go ahead.
Sounds good. And then I did want to update you on the inclusive playground funding. The Common Council did approve the release of those funds. And actually, I'm working to get some proposals, to get the engineering and all of that taken care of. So hopefully I'll get that by the end of the month, and we can get that approved and begin to start to get that facility designed.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
You bet.
We got staff reports too.
Just one thing for the recreation, well, I did remember, which I'm kind of surprised myself, that I did include the tree advisory committee agenda in minutes.
Thank you.
Which is, that's a revolutionary, that's quite an accomplishment. But I did insert, and actually, one of the resolutions which I didn't read is that the council was asking for a report on what the recreation department is going to be providing for the first 6 months, and Chad was able to provide that to me today, so I did add that to the recreation department's report on programming that they're working on for the first 6 months of the year. So I wanted to just call your attention to,
Is that added into this packet that we're looking at?
yes,
or
yes, I did add it into that, not the public packet.
not the online
No,
yet?
no,
Will
so
it?
Chad's report included the signage work, and then I inserted his programming update after that
Okay.
for your, and I certainly would want to recognize Dave and Susan for their involvement in being involved in the Stoner Prairie, along with, adopting, if you would, some other, Dave is looking to adopt McKee and Mickelson Woods, and Patrick, you've kind of adopted McGaw, and I certainly, invite anybody's interested in kind of adopting their park in their area and doing some additional work in there. That's an open invitation, I guess, to stay involved and get more involved if you've got the time and those kinds of things. And Katie, Katie's going to help with the interview panel if that works out. So, which is really good. So I certainly appreciate all that help, and there's a lot of things that we can do. So
Yeah.
I encourage that.
Absolutely.
This 2021 programming update from Chad
Yes.
in Rec Department, this may be of interest to the public to see what might be available in 21. Now, is this going to be added onto the online packet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
I can.
I think it would be useful because people want to see, hey, what can you do in Fitchburg?
Well, and actually we don't, we've got Facebook and all of those kinds of things. So they work directly with those customers.
Okay.
But I can certainly add it to the,
Well, I'm thinking it would be good to add it, and I would even suggest, would you like to run through these things just to, tell our audience what?
you want me to read it? Is that what
I
you're?
would kind of like you to, yeah.
Sure, they're looking to do their daddy-daughter, which is generally in February, but they're going to do it virtually. They're doing some virtual dance classes. They actually are meeting with ES Sports, which is a lot of the video games and all of those kinds of things, to potentially do some of that programming. We are moving. We are working to. We purchased some flooring for the McKee Farms Park shelter for skating. So the idea of creating an actual warming house and things for the skating rink at McKee.
Yeah, that was mentioned, let's see here, in somebody's report. I know I saw it somewhere. So the shelter at times, the McKee shelter will be open at times?
We're working. Yep, we're working towards that.
I also saw a comment somewhere, I think it was an online social media thing, where somebody had been told that the Jamestown Ice Rink is in good shape, but the McKee, the ice didn't freeze right or something like that?
Well, what happens is the ice begins to freeze, and then you get 6 inches of snow, and then you can't get equipment out there because you fall through. So they're working on it, and they actually took a snowblower out on Jamestown and plowed it off so they could begin to start to, and understand too that The skating rink maintenance is the last on the list. They've got plowing and all of those kinds of things, but they do a heck of a job in getting the skating rinks up and running as best they can. We're looking to do some outdoor recreation at Nine Springs Golf Course, potentially snowshoeing or cross-country skiing. Facebook showcases, they're calling it, Valentine's Day arts, community virtual bingo. Hopefully we're going to be doing some spring soccer, but certainly we'll have CDC guidelines and those kinds of things. Math literacy program, summer programming in general. We're hoping to get those things up and running. Certainly they may be with specific rules and those kinds of things. And we're taking park shelter rentals and diamond rentals as of January 1.
And I had a question about that. Yeah, I'm just getting a copy of this just at this meeting here. They are taking reservations for park shelters. Is that with limitations, like greatly reduced number of participants, or what?
No,
or just
no.
if you want to rent a shelter, you can rent it?
Well, they have to follow CDC guidelines, and
Do the rec department people, Chad and Austin, do they say you can rent a shelter, but you've got to do such and such and such
yeah.
number of people, restrictions, and all of that?
Yep.
But
And we'll see where we've got a lot of, and I will tell you that the annual events are the ones that are scheduled. We're not getting general park shelter rentals, I suspect, because of that, Patrick. We did have some last year where they could only have 25 people and had to do social distancing and all those kinds of things.
You mean people are not making the request?
They're not making the reservations at this point. But the
Okay.
annual events are going ahead, and it may end up being just like it was last year, that they say, you know what, we can't have our event because of CDC guidelines, but they need to get on the calendar and they pay.
Yeah, they need to hold a certain date, weekend or something like that for their event, and then they may have to cancel it if things are worse or so.
You are picking it up, my friend.
Well, I sort of had a suggestion. I don't know if this would gain anything at all, and I wanted to know if their reservations for park shelters were even being allowed, because it's kind of like last year, they were not really.
Oh, yeah, we do, but with the understanding that if you can't have your event due to CDC guidelines, we'll refund it.
Right. So my suggestion, you can consider this as, maybe or no value or whatever. At the popular shelters, even if people are not exactly coming into the office and making a reservation of a shelter of a certain day or something, and maybe they're just figuring, hey, almost nobody is coming out, the shelter is wide open, use the first come, first serve, go use an available shelter. If you maybe were to put a little notice in some of the popular shelters and just say, you don't necessarily, you're not required to make a reservation because there's such little demand, some wording like this. But if you appreciate that this shelter is here and that you can use it, you might consider a donation to the park funds. See if you get anything out of that.
Sure.
Is that the rest of your report?
That is, yep.
Okay. All right. Future agenda items, Sunnyside Park improvements. Is there anything you want to say anything, or you just want to wait?
Yeah, nothing new. We're still looking at water, light, and then a park ID sign. So
Okay.
haven't had a chance to dive into that one yet.
All right. The next two park commission meetings are February 4th and March 4th. And we are at the final end of our meeting. We need a motion to adjourn in a second. Unless you have questions.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. I'll say the time is
Opposed?
9:05.
We are adjourned. Motion carried.